Um, I wanted to talk also about this story, which I absolutely loved here. You know how Donald Trump has appointed himself to the board of the Kennedy Center, which is the great performance
Yes.
arts space in Washington, D.C. And of course, everybody has gone absolutely feral about this. And if you needed a perfect example of Trump derangement syndrome, this is it. Remember the award-winning musical Hamilton, where they had founding father Alexander Hamilton as a black guy, and he was doing rap and all of this stuff? Well, they've confirmed they're not going to let the musical run again at the JFK Center for Performing Arts because of President Trump's takeover of the venue. What do you make of that?
I think it's very rich because they said that they don't want to continue the show there because they're not about partisanship and politics. But if people recall, Mike Pence, vice president, the first Trump go around, went to see the Hamilton show and was booed by the people on the stage. So they do politics sometimes, and they certainly enjoyed performing for Barack Obama. I think politics is not really the problem here. It's a very leftist organized performance. Lin-Manuel Miranda, very well-known leftist activist. I love the show. It got my kids into history. I love hip hop. I enjoyed it. I think it's disappointing that they're doing this because people will miss out. But, you know, it is them choosing partisanship over their own performance.
Yeah, exactly. Hey, I want to talk to you, too, because we had just overnight here in Australia, we had confirmation hearings for Jay Bhattacharya as the director of the National Institutes of Health. Well, it's fascinating here because Dr. Jay Bhattacharya was one of the great COVID skeptics and one of the great lockdown skeptics. Now, you moved to Florida from New York, I believe, in part because of some of the lunacy that was going on in New York during that period. He was one of the Barrington Declaration scientists. And here's the fascinating thing. During his hearings, the whole question of lockdowns, which he was so against, they never came up. They didn't get challenged. He didn't get challenged by Democrats. Do you think this is now finally an admission that the lockdown COVID skeptics were right?
Well, you know it is, right? We were in New York, I think you and I around the same time, and it was a crazy place to be. Things just got crazier and crazier. Restaurants would be open here, but not over here. It was a real just insane thing to do, and the lockdowns clearly didn't work. And what we're seeing 5 years later, especially with Jay Bhattacharya not being asked any questions whatsoever about his position on lockdowns, is that everybody wants to pretend now that they were against the lockdowns, that everybody wanted to open schools, for example, when I know that I was writing article after article in the New York Post saying we need to reopen schools. Kids are going to suffer. They're going to have long-term, disadvantages if the people who don't get to send their kids to school. At the time, it was a very contentious thing to say, but now I can't find a single person who disagrees with that. I mean, some of the people who particularly kept school closed, like Randy Weingarten, the head of a teachers union here, she now says she wanted to open schools the whole time. I love that Jay Bhattacharya is up for this role. I love that he's going to be in that position. He deserves it. He was a voice of sanity and reason, and he was very steady during a time where people lost their minds. So I'm loving it. I hope he does a great job, and I know he will.
Yeah, and we had him on Sky News an awful lot. He was this is one of the first places that he came on when the pandemic started to hit. He was always a voice of reason. And Karol Markowicz, so are you. Thank you so much for joining me on the U.S. Report tonight.